What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven, and in this video, we are going to take a look at a Wonder Waddle game. I've been showing off a lot of tree content over the past 2 weeks, so wanted to branch out a little bit with this Wonder Waddle game, but I am going to have some more tree videos over the weekend because trees are probably leaving soon in the next patch. Okay, that's enough acorny tree puns. So we are going to be looking at a Wonder Waddle game, and I'll lock this shop because it's got a golden chicken in it, which is pretty nice to pick up with Wonder Waddle because that can help inject you with some additional cash. And we are going to be playing up against the Loki right here. So it's not the craziest thing to go for this for glory because the Loki lost their previous combat. So they're probably not high rolling, at least yet. They could certainly be high rolling this turn. They could find a forbidden fruit or a shrink spell, but I'm just gonna bet on that not happening. Also because I kind of want to pick up this kitty cut purse as well next turn. So for that reason, I don't want to spend the gold on rolling. Might as well just spend it on casting the spell. Could have cast the spell so that Cinderella saw it, though I generally don't love wasting gold on Cinderella while I'm playing Wonder Waddle. Unfortunately, the Loki is going to win the combat against us, but then we get to find a Wizard's Familiar to kind of get off to the races here. And when I see Noble Steed, I do kind of change my direction a little bit on the Cinderella. Needle-Nose Daggers, I don't even know if we're going to win the next combat, though it could be kind of cute with the kitty cut purse. So basically, I'm just going to pick up the Cinderella here. I think that, like I was saying, normally on Wonder Waddle, I will skip on most questing units. I mean, I'll take an early Brave Princess and I'll take a Cinderella late in the game, but I am generally not going to want to try to pick up Cindy early because it's just so easy to get tier 2 treasures on Wonder Waddle, and for the most part, I'm skipping tier 2 treasures anyways. But in this case, I will pick up this tier 2 treasure and pick up the Cindy because that'll just give us more chances to find Hat and Ball, which is kind of the name of the game, especially if you have found an early Wizard's Familiar. I'm going to pick up a golden chicken and a lucky get back in the econ game. Unfortunately, no spells for Wizard's Familiar or Cindy, so we are kind of struggling on what our current board looks like. And yeah, we're going to need a little bit of help to do some stronger stuff. I am, interestingly here, trying to backline the units that I don't want this Headless Horseman to steal. I'm like, okay, you can steal a not active at all Cindy, or you can steal a goat, which either of those would have been pretty reasonable for them considering they had another Cindy and another goat, but I didn't want them to steal Lucky Golden Chicken or the upgraded Wizard's Familiar. That could have been really bad for us. So we'll keep rolling, and we find a pair of Blind Mice on this turn, which is really nice. That is going to allow us to pick up Forking Rod, which is quite an easy pickup. That is going to mean we're going to be able to get a ton of stats really easily on Wizard's Familiar, and we're only going to need to find 2 spells now, 1 more spell to activate Cinderella and grab a tier 3 treasure from that. So all of this is really turning around. Oops, sorry, I just lost my camera because I am recording multiple videos right now. I just recorded the April Fool's video. We'll see if I can't get the camera back right now. Okay, looks like it is back, but it might disappear later on in the video. Sometimes that's what happens. Once it starts going, it is gone. But regardless, really good start to this game. The 3 blind mouse into the forking rod, I think, is one of the strongest starts that you can have on Wonder Waddle because it is going to just so easily push you into that spell direction and really just give you some great rewards for casting spells. Does look like we are going to be losing this combat unless some things really turn around here, but it's going to just be impossible to battle through this Sleeping Beauty anyways, Sleeping Princess. So We are going to take a little bit of damage here. We'll take 5 down to 20, and we are near the bottom of the lobby, but I think that that is totally fine. Kind of interesting, we can double for glory on the rank up turn. This will give us 2 tier 4 units going into next turn. Not too shabby. It's also going to give us the treasure off Cindy, which unfortunately is not a hat or a ball, but instead a fancy pants. So I'll roll and pick up a prized pig with said fancy pants and then roll again. And we do have some additional options here. We can pick up the goat or the chicken. I think I'm going to wind up picking up both of them here. The runestones is also pretty good. Oh yeah, and now we can toss the noble steed. Okay, so that's great. So we pick up runestones, toss the noble steed, then pick up the goat. That's a really good move there. And now we can pick up a Merlin's hat, and we've got the hat plus forking rod. So we could have gone for the True Love's Kiss there. That wouldn't have been the craziest play in the world, because we would have been able to double kiss a 4-drop potentially and get a 6-drop next turn, which, you know, we are hurting a little bit. We especially, I mean, we're towards the bottom of the lobby. It feels like we're reasonably strong, but we're towards the bottom of the lobby, and it looks like we're going to be taking some more damage this turn against my opponent's Princess Peeps here, just making a bunch of sheep. This one, it's going to be close. It is going to be a really close combat, but unfortunately we are going to lose and feed my opponent a little bit of gold. So we're down to 16. We are almost in last place other than this Miri, but we do need to turn some things around slightly. We get some additional health, a health injection. That is nice as well. And then we'll go for a Masquerade Ball, and this will cast twice because we've got the Forking Rod, and it'll let us see some tier 6 and tier 5 units. Burning Tree, obviously pretty good, though I think that we just want to play like the strongest possible board for the time being, and obviously Good Boy plus Green Knight is also kind of sweet. We do have to consider that the Fancy Pants bonus, we could have thrown that onto the Burning Tree, so that would have made that an 8-26. Definitely worth considering, but a 23-23 Jormungand I think is going to help get us back into this game. It's also going to help that we are playing up against Miri, but it's going to be nice just to have that unit that is so far ahead of the curve, and that is really going to give us the flexibility to really pursue this HatBall. That is the idea now. I really just want to find HatBall, and like I said, I think that we'll have the flexibility to do so now that we have picked up this Jormungand. So that's kind of the idea, a little bit of a backwards way to find HatBall, but I think that makes this a pretty interesting and fun game as well. We'll have to battle through my opponent's Juliets, but like I said, we've got this large Jormungand in the front that looks like he's going to be eating up all of my opponent's backline units, while their Gingerbread Knight eats up all of my backline units. So pretty funny combat there, and we are going to wind up taking this Miri out. And that's great. That's great. So now we will be looking for more prized pigs, potentially stags, definitely golden chickens. Should have purchased those things in the opposite order, so that way we had a 6-6 white stag and a 2-2 golden chicken, but that's just playing with the pants. Sometimes that happens. I'll sell off the 3 blind mice and pick up a prized pig. I instead actually decide to roll the die into it because rolling the die is free, and we're going to roll the die anyways if we pick up the prized pig this turn. So might as well just roll the die first. That also gets us a little bit of extra gold. And here we have a definite decision to make. Do we want to be picking up golden chickens, or do we want to use this treasure map to try to find a triple on the stag, or to try to find a triple with like 3 blind mice would also be really good, or Nyan Sea Terror potentially if we decide to lock this XP. I don't think locking this XP is the craziest idea in the world, but it's tough because it's not going to get doubled. It's not going to help us in finding this HatBall, which, I mean, we're just looking for the ball at this point. But taking XP on Wonder Waddle, a lot of times I try to shy away from. unless I like already have the hat and the ball, it's just going to mean that now we're leveling up. Now we're seeing tier 5 units, and that's going to make it even harder to find tier 3 units and tier 4 units to find the treasures that we really want. So I'm going to avoid XP on Wonder Waddle where possible, though it is tricky that we have this treasure map that we kind of have to get out of the way as we keep seeing all of these golden chickens. I'm going to go for a True Love's Kiss here to start things off this turn because it is doubled, and now we can grab a upgraded tier 5 unit, and this also puts Prized Pig back into the pool so that we can find more of them. And I will go ahead and pick up this Prized Pig here, and I'm also just looking at the rest of this shop, and notably, I am looking at this XP spell. And while I said I don't generally like XP, the options here are basically pick up the Prized Pig and then start rolling for additional Prized Pigs just to like grab that tier 5 treasure, or triple cast the end. And I think that that's just a little bit too juicy to pass up. I'm sorry, it's only a double cast of the end. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. But we'll be able to double cast the end, which means we're going to be gaining like a whole bunch of life points as well. If we cast it on Vampire, then we gain 6 life points. I do think that we are reasonably strong now with 23 attack and health units. Oh, actually 3. We've got the Wizard's Familiar there too, as well as the new edition of the Nyan Sea Terror. But I think that we'll be okay for this combat, so I'm going to now focus on XP and potentially move away from HatBall. We'll kind of see how it goes, but kind of playing this a little bit flexibly. We'll see what we need to do to get us to the end of the game. Reasonable combat RNG for us there is going to allow us to take out my opponent's Lucky that was Friendly Spirit powered up, and take out this Loki that denied us that for glory early on in the game with the egg. So some nice revenge. And here, I'm going to go for Prized Pig before we pick up the end. And the reason for this is we could find Mimic Chest. And Mimic Chest now means that we get to triple cast the end. And I'm going to go for it on this Jormungand. This is going to mean that we double our life total. Each cast of the end gives us plus 6 health, and that is going to mean that all in all, we get 3 XP and, 18 health from that cast. So pretty sweet stuff. I'll pick up this Storm King to replace the Jormungand that we just tossed, and now we're rolling, and I am definitely looking for Stag, though I am considering some other avenues here, and then we'll pick up another Storm King. So pretty reasonable here. We're not quite hat-balling, but we are still mimic hat forking, which means that we're going to be able to cast a bunch of spells, which is going to grow our Wizard's Familiars and give us a strong board. And I think that that is strong enough for this stage of the game. We'll see if we can't transfer this into, like, maybe now we can upgrade the Storm King and potentially get a 9th Book of Merlin. That's a totally different angle to take this in, but I think we've got the time to try to pursue some other different angles. And the nice thing is we are still Wonder Waddle. So typically, this stage of the game, I am not trying to find a ball if I don't already have it. However, with Wonder Waddle, there's 2 other factors at play. One is that we can find the ball much easier because it only takes 2 animals to find a tier 2 treasure. The Shrivel there, also kind of interesting, as well as the Fog. Like, any of these spells get triple cast, so these combat-related spells are really good, though we could also triple cast a Pigomorph. I do see the Hercules here along with the Mimic Chest, so I kind of like that because, like I said, maybe we could find like a 9th Book of Merlin or something like that. Do see the donkey, though I don't think I really want to go for it, but I will go for the stag. That is enough of a pickup and actually get really lucky. Find the crystal ball. I think I just want to toss the Mimic Chest here. Unfortunately, I don't have Aeon. I would really love to toss this hat, and if I had Aeon, then we could clearly do so. But unfortunately, we do not, so I am going to have to just play it a little bit safer here. We'll go for a Gigantify on the Hercules, and then we find a Dream spell, which is pretty tempting, but I don't want to lock onto Dream and cast it at the start of my next turn. So instead, I'm going to sell my prized pig, and I'm going to double cast this Dream now. First, we'll cast it into Mordred, and then we will switch over into the Mask. So now we've got more dreams to cast on future turns, and maybe we can find something a little bit better for our troubles. But the important thing here, we've got these 40/40 Storm Kings and Wizards Familiars. Unfortunately, they are going to go down. My opponent has got a pretty good crew here themselves, but we don't trigger the Court Wizards again, so that is really good and going to mean that we just barely lose this one, taking 6 damage down to 30. But hey, we've got enough life points to play with here. So now we're just going to kind of try to do some HatBall things. We are in the top 3, finally pivoting into HatBall. Here's our Aeon, here's our Spellweaver, getting some additional mages and stuff. And I don't think I need the Hercules at this point in the game. It's not like I could really get a great evil unit, though. Like, the only thing that I'd really be looking for there would maybe be like... Okay, now this is different. Oh, well, we actually have the 9C Terror too. Okay, so let's do that on the 9C Terror. But yeah, we could get like Doom Breath, but there's not anything like super exciting that we could get. Like, I'm not super excited to grab like a Pumpkin or anything like that at this point in the game. And then I will Dream as my last spell for the turn, and we'll Dream into Merlin. So we have really put together quite the mage comp here in the last few minutes. We've had the Forking Rod for a while. We've had the Wizard's Familiar for a while. But now I feel like the time is... now we definitely feel like we're mages. This was our first real HatBall turn. And honestly, maybe next turn will be our first real HatBall turn, because we spent 8 gold picking up the mages on this one. And I did almost forget to say that the other reason that I like Wonder Waddle HatBall later into the game as well, I mean, I'd rather do it earlier, but it's fine later because you can also pick up those Wizards Familiars somewhat easily and scale those if you can't find the Storm Kings. My opponent with a huge, nasty Court Wizard here that is definitely going to be doing some work. That is a ranged unit, so it's going to be a little bit awkward that we are unable to take it down as it kind of takes down the rest of my front line, but we are still going to find the win and hit this Snow Angel for 8 down to 8. Now we are up against the Ghost, so that is going to give us some much needed time, and we're no longer picking up those 3 blind mice. We are just trying to HatBall. So I'll go for a Queen's Grace on Hercules. That is double cast, so that is pretty nice. And then we've got True Love's Kiss on the Echo Wood. Basically just trying to hit a Storm King there. But Jormungand actually has some nice play to it. And it is a monster, so that part of it is nice too. But basically, we'll be able to potentially slay with the Aeon, which means that now we've got something to care about when we're slaying. We find another Spellweaver on the cheap, so that's pretty sweet. Kind of want to put that in. And we still have a bunch of spells that we want to cast this turn, so I'm going to eat up this Jormungand. Then I'm going to Mix-a-Wizzle the Hercules. I'm kind of over Hercules at this point of the game. And then I am just casting some more spells. And I find some even more Spellweavers. Let's pick up the first one, skip the treasure, pick up the second one, and then sell off this Lordy so that we can Gigantify right before the turn is over. There was a lot to do that turn. That's why I said that was definitely like our first real HatBall turn, I think. And unfortunately, our Aeon, I don't think is like big enough to put in the front line necessarily, but that means that it's not going to wind up slaying in the back line. So no additional discount, but we still have the HatBall, and Aeon is still growing these Spellweavers, so it's still doing something. Mostly, though, we are just scaling with this Forking Rod plus Crystal Ball and the Hat, of course. I do think that by the end of this turn, the Aeon will be big enough that it should be able to slay. We do have to consider if we want to pick up additional Aeons, because obviously that is going to cut into our econ. And some of the awkwardness here is when you triple Aeon, one of the things that you're looking for is Mimic Chest. And we can't pick up Mimic Chest, so I kind of knew I was skipping that one. Maybe I would have grabbed onto an Ambrosia, but I don't think I could have justified that because we need the hat, at least for now. Probably not dreaming out of Wizard's Familiar, probably going to stay mages. But yeah, some really interesting stuff this game, and that is kind of why I wanted to showcase it. I think that this is not like the luckiest HatBall game. It's certainly not the unluckiest. We did get the Forking Rod pretty early, and we did some nice stuff with Wizard's Familiars and that earlier in the game. But definitely a weird thing where I had to toss the Mimic Chest, whereas normally I'd want to pick up the Mimic Chest and then the Ninth Book of Merlin at this stage of the game so that we can start to do some really crazy big stuff in the end game. But I do think, especially with this life total, unfortunately we're not going to be able to take out the Headless Horseman, but I do think we're going to be able to do some nice stuff here just as we continue to scale. We now have a full board of 7 units, so that is pretty nice. And the next thing that we have to look to is potentially upgrading these Wizard's Familiars into tier 6 units themselves. So that's what I'll go for this turn, and we get pretty nice rolls. We get almost exclusively ranged units up the chain. Shadow Assassin, Court Wizard, a brief stop onto Shoulder Fairies before hitting this Robin Wood, though Robin Wood is only temporary for now. We don't have a monster, so that is a little bit unfortunate, but we can make a monster of a Storm King with this Knighthood, and then just continue to cast a few more spells. Unfortunately, cannot feed anything to the Kraken, nor can we Wormroot here, but I will just settle for Pigomorphing 2 of my opponent's units, and that's pretty sweet. Could lock for Feed the Kraken. It's a really weird thing to do, but basically in that empty shop spot, there is going to be a minion in that spot, and if it is a tier 2 through 4 minion, we basically break, well, if it's a tier 4 minion, we break even on gold. 5 or 6, we lose a little bit of gold for casting a doubled Feed the Kraken, but then obviously a tier 2 or tier 3 minion, we'd gain gold into next turn. So all of that is pretty sweet. I'm going to change my opponent's back line into pigs, which is still going to be useful because they're not going to get that buff from the good boys that die. They could get the buff from this friendly spirit. That's actually going to go onto the bear stain though. And you can see our board is just way too big. At this point, we are going to be killing this Snow Angel at this point, and then we are up into the finals, 20 damage even on this Snow Angel. Then we're up in the finals against this Headless Horseman. And we have gained so much health this turn with the health potions and the XP and all that, that we are still at 34 going into the final fight of the game. Pigomorph for the final fight, pretty tempting, but I think that we can potentially find one later. We'll see what else we can do here. I'll Mix-a-Wizzle on my other Wizard's Familiar because my backline Wizard's Familiar, or Court Wizard now, is a ranged unit. And I'm totally fine with it just being a random ranged unit. There we go. Back up to 36 health. Pretty incredible, considering we were at 18 at one point and things weren't looking super great. But now things are obviously looking pretty wonderful. I'm going to go for slightly weird board positioning on this turn. I think that the Smite is like a totally fine spell to cast, but I am going to frontline one of my ranged units and then backline this Aeon, and that is going to mean that the Grimsoul, when that dies, will give us the Aeon trigger twice, actually, and will give us a spell that costs 4 less. So there we go. I think we also get more attacks with our ranged unit sometimes if we have 1 in 1 and in 5, so I think this is going to work out okay for us. And also, our units are just way bigger than anything my opponent is doing, so this is going to be a pretty easy one. We take out the Headless Horseman, and we win the game with Merlin HatBall Fork starting off with a Wonder Waddle game. Pretty nice stuff there. So that is going to be it for this video. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'm NoLucksGiven. Peace.